talk to you today about the blogging practices of Mormon women. In order to conduct my research for this project, I conducted a literature review, and there's very little scholarly literature on Mormon women and their use of the internet. So I had to kind of create my own framework for this project. I looked at general literature on Mormonism as a faith tradition, as well as literature on the intersection of religion and blogging practices, and used that to frame my work. I also did an extensive blog review that I'm still conducting. I examined posts from nearly 50 different blogs for Mormon mommy blogs, Mormon family blogs, and Mormon fashion blogs, and I'm going to continue doing that research because it really interests me. Journaling has been an LDS faith practice since the church's inception in the 1820s. People are encouraged to journal and write in diaries about their lives and about the evolution of their faith. In the early 2000s, with the advent of internet technologies, the church really encouraged its lay people to begin to utilize blogs to establish a public relations presence for the church, as well as to proselytize. And so this community began to be known colloquially as the bloggernacle. And in these blogs, particularly in the blogs that are written by women, faith is foremost. There's a collection of buttons at the bottom of this slide that I pulled from Mormon. I'm definitely going to close up the internet when I actually give this presentation. That I pulled from actual Mormon blogs, talking about Mormon fashion bloggers, pictures of Mormon temples, pictures of Jesus, and these are typically shown on the front page of the blog. So Mormonism is foremost for these women, and they want to advertise that. The first subset of blogs I'm going to look at is courtship, marriage, and the sexual division of labor within the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. These are pictures of two Mormon women who blog about their husbands. Jenna Cole of the blog That Wife, as you can see, wife figures prominently in the title of her blog, and Mormon women who are married and blog tend to identify primarily as wives and mothers. The second picture is Stephanie Nielsen of the Nini Dialogues, and she just published a book this past week showing that this Mormon blogosphere isn't an insular world. They're beginning to extend beyond into trade publications, and they're being read by the general public. Early on, Mormon girls and boys are encouraged to date, to marry, and engage in these DTRs. DTR is a common acronym you see on the blogs of young Mormon women, and it means to define their relationship. The church has sanctioned this acronym and given guidelines for it. You're supposed to talk to your partner about the possibility of marriage and set parameters, because marriage and the union of man and women is incredibly important in the Mormon church, and this is demonstrated through these blogs. Former Bishop Victor L. Brown said in a speech that I found quoted on a couple of different blogs that it's unwise to delay marrying so one can reach a vocational, financial, or emotional status of independence, showing that these women hold marriage as their ultimate goal. I was hard-pressed to find a blog of a woman who wasn't married or looking to marry. I couldn't find a blog of a single Mormon girl who wasn't ultimately aiming to get married. There's also very separate roles for men and women within the Mormon church that are demonstrated through these blog posts. Jenna Cole, who was pictured earlier, wrote about how she didn't think her husband would make a good stay-at-home dad because he's been given these God-given traits of breadwinner and a businessman, whereas the woman is the nurturer and the homemaker in the family. And this is shown later in mommy blogs as well. Women are nurturing, they're soft. However, there's also a refashioning of identity within the LDS church. There's a growing movement of wives that you can see in these lifestyle blogs who are working full-time jobs to bring in their family's sole income while their husbands pursue higher education to become doctors or lawyers or dentists. And typically there aren't children in these families yet, but it signifies a shift away from traditional church values where women are being encouraged to work outside the home. So they're asserting new identities and demonstrating them through these online blogs. The second subset of blogging that I examined was the Mormon mommy blog, which is perhaps the most famous and prevalent of the LDS blogs. Jenna Cole, who I quoted earlier, answered the question of one reader who didn't want to have children by saying that if you deliberately choose to avoid marriage and children, the LDS faith is probably not for you. And this is because women are said to be saved through childbearing. That's a direct quote from the Hebrew Scriptures, which is one of the 3 Mormon texts. Women in these blogs share the stories of child rearing and homemaking. There's a do-it-yourself ethic that's espoused through this that comes from the church and trickles down through these blog posts. Since they're typically working on a single income, they have to make clothes themselves, or do frugal cooking practices, and they share these recipes and these tutorials with their readership and get feedback. So it provides an opportunity for two-way communication, not just with Mormon women, but with Mormon women and the world at large, and mothers and wives in general. Again, increasing in visibility for the church. The final subset of blogs that I looked at, and my personal area of research interest, is the Mormon fashion blog. These are 3 prominent Mormon fashion bloggers. Elaine Hearn, pictured on the left, runs a blog called Clothed Much that is also kind of a collective of modest Mormon women who want to blog about their clothing. If you Google Mormon fashion blog, she's the first thing that pops up. So she's very prominent and famous in the Mormon blogging world. In the general scholarly literature surrounding blogs and faith, Cheong, Halibase, and Kwong, who are all scholars of religion, say that in blogs that aren't directly religious in nature, that aren't pegged as Mormon blogs, some entries are clearly marked by religious practice and influenced by spiritual beliefs, and there's no real better way to see this in the Mormon women blog culture than in fashion blogs, because the emphasis is so much on modesty, but it's not directly portrayed as being a Mormon blog. These women exude the Mormon quality of modesty in the clothes they choose, and the accessories, and the way they groom themselves, and they're also being encouraged to perform a feminine gender. So you see them wearing skirts a lot, wearing lace, wearing bows. Mormon women must dress modestly to cover their temple garments, which I won't picture here out of respect for the Mormon religion. You can Google them if you want to. They must wear their temple garments under their clothes at all times as a reminder of their commitment to God and their commitment to a holy life. And in this way, in the Mormon fashion blogosphere, the term wearing one's garments has taken on a double meaning. You have a literal meaning of wearing your temple garment underneath your clothes, and then you have a figurative meaning. So if you say that a woman wears her garments, you're saying that she adheres to the Mormon scriptures and doctrine, that she lives a godly life, and that she's a Mormon woman who is pure of both body and soul. And conversely, there's been some controversy in this blogging world that a woman who doesn't wear her garments is denying her Mormonism and turning her back on her faith. And these people are often frowned upon. And they're sort of carving out their new Mormon niche for themselves. So again, asserting facets of traditional Mormon identity and creating a new one. So how is this significant, and why do I choose to analyze Mormonism and the writings of Mormon women? Mormon women are not allowed to have the priesthood in their religion. So this is the way that they communicate. This is the way that they proselytize and mission, since they can't have a formal leadership role. These blogs show insight into a uniquely American religious tradition. Mormonism is less than 200 years old. It had its genesis in upstate New York in 1823. So it's evolving right now, and you can see it through these blogging texts. You can see the way these women are both constructing and reconstructing their Mormon identities, showing old identities and asserting new ones. So it's a first-hand look of the evolution of a faith tradition, and I find that really interesting, and I think that scholars should find that really interesting. So, any questions?
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
Because Mormonism is an international religion, there's quite a lot of many countries involved. Did you look at all at the international aspects, or is there kind of a cross conversation going on between or among?
You're hard pressed to find an international blogger, particularly in fashion blogs right now, but there are Mormon women who are on missions or with their husbands while their husbands were working abroad, and blogging from places like Japan and places like Central America. And so while the majority of the Mormon church actually lives outside of America at this point, you can look at church statistics and see that, the blogging voices are predominantly American. Not necessarily white, they're really representing different ethnic and racial backgrounds, but predominantly American. So these voices are really what we see online at the moment, but since they're out ministering to the people internationally, their views and the rhetoric that they espouse really trickles down throughout the Mormon world at large. But I'd be interested to look further in my research as I want to continue this and see, if I can find any international perspectives.
One other question?
Yeah.
When you think about furthering the research, is there a particular, what are the areas are you most interested in following up with in terms of following from this research into another project?
While fashion blogging really interests me most, it's pretty monolithic. So I'd really like to look more at mommy blogging. One, because I don't feel that I've looked nearly as much as I'd like to in the short time I've had, but also because I want to look more about the practices that women use to teach their children. What scriptural lessons, particularly the ones that are unique to Mormonism, the ones that come directly from the Book of Mormon and the Mormon scriptures, that they use to demonstrate their faith to their children and shape their children in their formative years. Also Mormon homeschooling is a very small unit, but I'd like to look at that as well and how these Mormon women justify keeping their children at home and how they teach their children and inform their children both spiritually and secularly.